I'm Liz Faublis, and this is Currents. Condemned as anti-Catholic, a highly offensive photograph is on display in New York, and with it, protest. We're there. Election day is coming fast and is seen as crucial. We go into the deep with the Bishop of Brooklyn.
It is a responsibility we have. We should vote. We've got to express our opinion, and we have to participate in the civics of our society. It's a real Christian responsibility.
And all of our shepherds have gathered together. We are at the meeting of the bishops of New York. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. There were no riots, no flag burnings, no religious violence in Manhattan last night, even though a highly offensive anti-Catholic photograph was put on display in Midtown. Now, unlike the Muslim world's reaction to an anti-Islamic film, all was calm here. In this case, the offending photo is of a crucifix in a jar of urine. It is an old picture and previously was put on display in the National Gallery of Australia. There was violence then. The picture was smashed with a hammer and 2 people were injured. To avoid any further injuries, the gallery decided to close the exhibit. The man responsible for the photograph, Andre Serrano, was not happy with that decision.
I denounce the director, Timothy Pott's spineless lack of support. I denounce any and all acts of terrorism and violent dissent. And most of all, I denounce the cowardice of those unable to fight for and defend the principles of their democracy. What the National Gallery has done is irresponsible and criminal.
Now, there was no trouble at the New York Gallery last night, but there was protest. Catholic League President Bill Donahue led the way.
Well, we're here today to protest the art by Andre Serrano, the so-called art of a crucifix placed in a jar of urine that has received federal monies back in the 80s, and it's being displayed here in the gallery here today.
The political and cultural elites in this country are very concerned about artistic fare, movies and the like that offend Muslims, but they never seem to speak out when Catholics and Protestants in general are offended. They have a free speech right to insult my religion. They have no moral right to do so. I have both a moral and a legal right to protest it. I'm against insulting anybody of any demographic group, whether it's Jews or gays or Catholics or Muslims. Why do people feel it necessary to go about their business intentionally trying to insult people? I have an analogy, a sarcastic analogy of an Obama bobblehead here in some brown Play-Doh, kind of a faux feces. Some people are upset with me because I have my fake feces here, but they're not upset about what's going on in there. See, they're making my point, however unwittingly. I want money for my art. This is my magnum opus here. If Serrano got 15 grand back in the 80s, I should get at least 50 grand today.
Do I think it's odd? No, it's expected almost. They call it art. It's just to shock people, and he has no point. The fact that this gallery in this high-rent area is taking a Christian sacred symbol, the crucifix, and showing it in such a manner, it just goes to show the duplicity that's at stake here with the cultural elites. Cultural elites are outraged when Muslim sensitivities and Jewish sensibilities are offended, but when it comes to Christians, they can just dump all over them. That's what we're here to protest.
And stay tuned. Much more as our Currents Week in Review continues. The power of the Rosary is coming to the White House this weekend. We speak with the leader. Welcome back to Currents. I'm Liz Faublis. Much of this week's news focused on religious freedom and liberty and on the federal government order that forces the Catholic Church to act against church teaching. That order is commonly known as the HHS mandate and requires the church to pay for drugs that cause abortions and to pay for sterilizations and contraceptives. Every day, the Catholic outcry against the mandate grows stronger. This Sunday, the power of prayer will be brought to bear at the White House, a rally and praying of the Rosary. Father Frank Pavone is the National Director of Priests for Life. He'll be in Washington as a leading voice, saying to the government the mandate must go. I spoke with him on Tuesday to learn more about the plans. Father, thank you so much for joining us. I know you are preparing for a very big event at the end of this week. So thank you for making the time for us. First, I want to remind our viewers that last we spoke, it was about a memo that you issued on August 1st to all of the Priests for Life employees, the consultants, and the prospective employees, stating that you will disobey the HHS mandate. Have there been any repercussions about that decision?
Well, we have not been punished by the government as of this point, and we don't expect to either. Our lawsuit, of course, is in progress, and we have had continuing back and forth with the courts and the attorneys in the expected way. So that's progressing, but we really don't expect any repercussions just yet. Things will get more interesting in January when our health care plan changes and its normal scheduled change, and the government will have to decide whether they're going to start imposing fines on us or not.
Okay, and Father, I also want to mention too that you weren't alone in the decision. We had some bishops taking a similar stance. We have bishops in Phoenix and Cincinnati and Wisconsin. Now, there were other bishops who simply just called on lay Catholics to contact their members of Congress or just simply to denounce the ruling. In your opinion, is this an issue of civil disobedience versus a more formal approach to the same end?
Well, I say yes to all these different approaches at once. We've got to address this legislatively to the extent that any remedies, either on the federal or state level, still remain. We certainly should be taking advantage of them, and we should be talking to our representatives and getting that avenue used. Then, of course, with the courts, we have those remedies, and of course, then a lot of it is just educational activity that has to be pursued as well. So people making statements has a tremendous amount of value, and of course, the churches have a key role in that, to preach and proclaim and teach this message.
And Father, now you've said that President Obama, he's taken the battle to us regarding life and liberty. Now we're taking the battle to him. On Sunday, September 30th at noon, you, Priests for Life, other pro-lifers, you're going to gather across from the White House in Lafayette Park. What are you hoping to convey about the HHS mandate in that gathering?
Well, that gathering is called Acts 5:29. It's named after a scripture verse, which ties in with what we were just saying, that the apostles said when they were told not to preach in the name of Jesus, they said, we must obey God rather than men. That is the theme of the event, and what it is essentially is a statement. Again, what we hope to do is raise awareness about the central importance of standing firm on our convictions and our principles, no matter what our government or any other government might say to the contrary. So what we're going to do is gather in front of the White House. Lafayette Park, of course, is located right opposite the White House and is a place for many public demonstrations in Washington. And we will have a gathering that is ecumenical, that is nonpartisan, and that is national. We expect people from various parts of the country to show up. My friend and colleague, Reverend Pat Mahoney, who runs a Christian ministry based in Washington, organizes a lot of these kinds of events, and he has spearheaded this one and asked me to be the key speaker. We're going to start with a rosary, and then I will give a speech, and then several other pro-life leaders will speak as well, including Reverend Mahoney. So we want to raise awareness. We want to send a message not only to the administration that we are resolved not to obey this mandate, but also to the general public that this is a line has been drawn in the sand, both by the administration and by the church, and we all have to be paying attention to, praying about, and engaging in this battle.
And Father, you know, we always, when you and I talk, and through Currents, we always like to offer a very balanced picture. When you take into the account the teaching of Acts 5:29, we must obey God rather than human beings in the literal sense of the word, there will be opponents who say this sounds like disregard for the law of the land. What do you say to that?
Oh, it's very much the opposite. It's the highest respect for the law of the land, because law has to always correspond with natural law and divine law and moral principles. For example, if a law were to be passed that said, you know, you can't kill your neighbor at night, but you can kill him between 7 and 12 in the morning, you know, that a law like that would be so absurd that it would cause people to lose respect for the law itself. In other words, when we keep the law with a small l accountable to the law with a big L, that is God's law and the unchanging moral law, then in fact we're showing respect for the law because we're preserving its integrity. And we're saying, look, law has a purpose. The purpose is the common good of the people that it is meant to serve. And that's what we're doing in this case, because unfortunately here the law, and we believe that, I'm really convinced this is a temporary problem. I think America has a certain self-healing quality to the way that it's been set up, especially when the church is active. But we here have a law which really is undermining one of the core principles of America, which is, well, two core principles, respect for life and respect for religious liberty. So no, it's not at all it's not a call for anarchism, it's not a call for chaos, it's simply a call for the reform of the law. And sometimes the only way to reform the law sometimes is to directly resist it.
I certainly expect that this will be a very peaceful gathering. And Father, for those who cannot come to Washington, I know it's a multi-day event, and they'd like to participate or learn more about the issues that have fueled this long-standing debate about religious liberty, the HHS mandate. How can they contact you?
Yes, I would invite people to go to priestsforlife.org. One word, all spelled out, Priests for Life. And right there on the front page, they'll find information about the HHS mandate, about how they can join in prayer each and every day, including on this weekend, and how they can find more information about the Acts 529 event, because certainly people can join in it spiritually, especially by their prayers, for a respect for life, for a change in our nation as we approach our nation's elections, and for the respect for religious liberty.
Father Pavone, thank you. As always, such a great pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much, and I wish you great success with your event at the end of the week.
Well, thank you so much, too, and look forward to being with you again.
We're looking forward to that as well. Thank you. And we'll have more currents after the break. Coming up next, Into the Deep with Bishop DiMarzio and why voting matters.
Clearly, the life issues are always a kind of a hierarchy of importance. There's nothing more important than life itself.
Welcome back. I'm Liz Faublas. Every day this week, there's been more news about the upcoming election, and now voting is underway. In Iowa, voters are arriving at election offices across the state to vote in person. Other states will soon join Iowa in accepting early votes. It's estimated that up to 40% of the nation's voters will cast their votes before Election Day on November 6. Many crucial issues, especially matters important to Catholics, will be decided in this election. For this latest edition of Into the Deep with Bishop DiMarzio, I asked the bishop for insight on which are most important and how Catholics should face them. Bishop, thank you so much for joining us. You know, we always love having you here.
It's good to be here.
Very important topic, election 2012. Been hearing a lot about it. It's coming. And before we get started, I really do want to make the point that the Catholic Church does not endorse any particular candidate. It's very nonpartisan, but to get the word out about election 2012 is in everybody's best interest.
Of course, it's a civic duty we have, and to engage ourselves in the electoral process, because our leadership does determine the direction of the country. It's moral principles, a lot of moral content in the programs that happen today. So, of course, we need to be concerned and involved.
Once you get behind the conventions and the ads and the campaign rhetoric,
yeah,
what are some of the key important issues that we really need to be considering right now before we head to the polls?
Well, clearly, the life issues are always a kind of a hierarchy of importance. There's nothing more important than life itself. Let's face it. What is it? Everything flows from that. So the protection of unborn life is very important. The reproductive system that people are using is important also, that it's a natural process. Go down the list, it's a hierarchical issue, that life itself is the most important thing. Then you take the other issues, and the quality of life issues are also important. You know, we want people to live, we just don't live in any bad condition. So we have to take a perspective that life issues are important, and everything comes from that. And that's the way we should be looking at making our decisions about who can best represent us. Now, there's no perfect candidate. There's no perfect party. I don't think anybody that can completely satisfy, I think, the teaching of the church. So then we have to make decisions, prudential decisions. Who will be best in what area? But always keeping in mind the more important things, life itself, that is critical.
We hear so much about the importance of the Catholic vote. How do you feel about the Catholic demographic being held to such a high standard?
Well, again, it's hard to say, is there a Catholic vote? The Catholic vote is a block. We're so integrated into our society. It might have been a day when there were Catholics leaning one way or the other, but today it seems to be that they're spread in the population so much that there's no block voting. There may be Catholic issues in voting. Certainly this HHS mandate that just came down from the government in the last several months may be a Catholic issue if people understand it. We're being forced to do something that we don't believe in. It's one thing to force people to do things they don't believe in. It's another thing to allow people their religious liberty. And here our religious liberty is being infringed upon because we're being forced to do something we do not want to do. Sometimes we're not allowed in the name of religion to do things that we'd like to do. There was a famous case of the Indian tribe that was smoking psychogenic materials, and they said it was part of their religion. Well, the Supreme Court, I guess, went up there and said it's not. But so you can get crazy cases, crazy extremes. The fact of the matter is religious liberty cannot be infringed upon in a free society as our own.
You know, we live in such a changing time right now. We're inundated with social media and just different ways of communicating. How do you think shows like Currents, how do you think Facebook, Twitter, all of that have affected the way we consider our vote, we consider our candidates and our future?
Well, in a certain sense, it's better to have more communication, or the issues become clearer. Sometimes there's a lot of miscommunication. We have a lot of communication, miscommunication happens also. But it's better to know what's happening so you can make a good decision than stay in the dark and just follow whatever. So I think information is important, and having the communications exponentially changed in the last 5 years especially, I think makes us more intelligent about our decisions.
And in the time we have left, it's never too late until Election Day. So what are we doing right now to promote voter registration?
Well, as you know, we've done this in the parishes, and it's not difficult to register to vote. Many people are not registered to vote. And one of the things we find that I think a lot of people are afraid to register to vote because they're afraid to go to jury duty, which is another civic responsibility. Maybe the way the juries are picked and this stuff could be improved so people are not so much afraid of it. But it is a responsibility we have. We should vote. We've got to express our opinion. And we have to participate in the civics of our society. It's a real Christian responsibility.
Everyone has to take accountability for
That's
their
right.
own actions. Thank you so much, Bishop DeMarcio. We really appreciate it. Stay tuned for more Currents after the break. Next, the bishops of our state to promote our faith gather in Queens, and we are there. Finally, we conclude our weekend review by returning to the Immaculate Conception Center in Douglaston, Queens. All of the bishops of New York State gathered there to put their energy and their prayers behind the new evangelization.
Give to the Lord the glory due his name. Proclaim his marvelous deeds to all the nations.
Today we're here at Douglaston, the seminary of the Immaculate Conception, and we are here for the bishops of the province meeting, but also mostly importantly is the catechetical leaders of the state have come together to witness the promulgation by the bishops of the state of a pastoral letter on catechesis.
What has happened to that hidden energy of the good news, which is able to have a profound effect on man's and woman's conscience. So what's happened to it?
Catechesis and the new evangelization are two sides of one coin. Because what the Holy Fathers have asked us, both Blessed John Paul and Benedict have asked us, is to really have a new spirit, a new way of looking at how we invite people to encounter the Lord. And that we do that personally. We do that really literally one person at a time. And catechesis is the deepening of that encounter.
Charity is catechetical. Charity is perhaps one of the best teachers. Charity is effectively didactic. It's kind of one of those words that you can give a lot of definitions to. Everybody knows what evangelization is, right? Obedience to the last words of Jesus on earth. Go out to the whole world and teach the gospel. That's evangelization. Church has been doing that for 2,000 years. What's new about it? What's new about it is that John Paul II said, look, we don't only evangelize others, we evangelize ourselves. We make sure that we're energized with our knowledge of and our love of and our service of Jesus Christ.
What we have done is in this pastoral letter to outline and define the characteristics of catechetical leaders, those who do transmit the faith. It's an effort on our part to try to, in the state, bring about some uniformity with those who are working hard, very hard, most of them, and in many ways in different places, to transmit the faith to young people, but also to adults.
The competent contemporary catechetical leader understands the impact of media, new media particularly, on the formation of the individual.
There's whole nations that are supposed to be Christian or Catholic, and they've lost their salt. The light is under the bushel basket, as Jesus warned us about, and they need to be re-evangelized, right? Especially in Europe. Even the church does, because the church can begin to take the faith for granted. The church can get listless, lethargic, at least in certain parts of the world. It's not true in Latin America. It's not true in Asia. It's not true in Africa. Churches are bustling. Churches are on fire. Churches are alive. Converts galore. It's more the settled, wealthy areas of the world where the church is becoming kind of yawning. And we can't let that happen, because the faith always wakes us up and perks us up. And that's the new evangelization.
Before him, all the earth.
And as many of us know, Cardinal Dolan is widely regarded for his wit and his wisdom. And here's a delightful example.
I'm Cardinal Timothy Dolan. You're watching Currents, and I'm glad you are. I might be on it.
And we thank His Eminence for his promotional effort on our behalf. And we thank you for watching. For all of us here at Currents, I'm Liz Faublas. Have a good night.
Proclaim his marvelous deeds.